Hi, and welcome to the Kevin Walsh podcast. So today I have one of the most popular sports commentators, I'd say, sports journalists in Ireland, and easily one of the most interesting because despite not having any attachment to any media or any newspaper, any radio show, he's completely self created something that's extremely popular with an extremely loyal following of listeners, and he's niched down on exactly the people who love listening to him and they trust him a lot. So I find this very interesting because I want to do it myself, but I've always found his podcasts and his posts very entertaining, very funny, very interesting. So today I have on the podcast Arif.
Kev, how are you now? Great to
I'm good.
great to see you. I think we've chatted before the time you were doing the ultra marathon for a charity. I think I had you on the pod. I think it was the only time, was it? Or we've chatted a good bit in between and probably before that. But this is probably the last, or the this is probably that's probably the last time, is
It is, yeah, it is. It's probably the only official one. The odd Instagram message here and there.
it? We won't. Yeah.
Nothing official. I owe you a thank you for that podcast because I actually messaged about 10 podcasts to try and get on them that time. I was doing the run, to try
Okay.
and get the awareness to raise money for charity, but you were the only one desperate enough for to say you and one other one, and it was incredible the response I got. I got a lot of messages, got a lot of donations, and it really kicked off the fundraising. So it had the desired effect.
Yeah, well, you fit it in, Kevin. Fairness, like you had a lot of work done with Gary Moore at the time, and you're involved with the Mayo GAA side of things. So it kind of just, it was the niche that the perfect niche, I suppose, that I'd be looking for. Sort of maybe someone doing something different but still connected in a way to the GAA. So it fitted in perfectly, and there was a good response our side too. In fairness.
Yeah, and we have that mutual obsession, which is Mayo GA. So there's a lot of massively different personalities in Mayo, young and old, male and female, living all over the county and all over the world, but they have that mutual obsession, which is Gaelic football in Mayo.
Yeah.
So what is, to start off the podcast, what is your earliest memory of club football in Mayo?
My earliest club football, even memory of football, would be the first training session. I'd say I was only 5 or 6 at the time. I think it was back in, I suppose, probably 95, maybe 94, 95. There was no under sixes or under eights, under tens. So you trained with under tens. That was the first underage team. So I'd say I was in maybe 2 years international school, and going into training and getting a lift with he's passed on now, a fella called Sean. I think it was Sean Gildee. He was from Mulranny. So I used to live on the Mulranny Newport Road, and he'd pick up all the young lads on the way. So the first memory was, I think he had a Seat Toledo, a green one, and it was about 10 young lads in the back and 2 or 3 in the boot, and hopping into the back and going off for the evening to play football in town. So yeah, that was probably the earliest memory of, and you wouldn't, it's unheard of now, like overloading or that crack. Like we were just fired into a car and brought all over the county when we were young fellas and didn't think anything of it. And that was probably the earliest memory. I think the first drill, I don't know why I remember this, but I remember the first drill we did was picking the ball up off the ground drill. That was my first memory of football, and maybe, like sort of proper structured, doing something. Now there wasn't too much to it. Now, it was obviously a bit of a few drills in a game, but just to be involved with a team and fellas that you thought were giants, 9, 10 year olds playing with them, it was great.
Yeah.
And that's what really got me into it. Now that was the first step, I suppose, of being involved in GEA. And we obviously done the run then of under sixes or under tens and under 12s, and we had great memories of blitzes. I know they don't really do them anymore, but that was the grading system back in the day. Was you'd play a blitz, it might be a West Mayo blitz, or I don't know how they split them up. And
Yeah,
if
I remember.
I think there was groups of three, or it started off. You play 2 games. If you lose the 2 games, you go into the C competition. Lose one, you go into the B, and if you win your 2 games, you win to the A, and that's where it kind of structured your championship grading and league grading going forward. And like that's probably, it's still an issue to this day. I think they have problems with grading. I think it might be a simple fix to this is go back to the old route of doing it.
Yeah, I remember those blitz were ferociously competitive. It was real Champions League stuff.
It was brilliant because I think it was the first time when you're a young lad that you realize that there's so many teams in the county that you'd never heard of, different colors, different names of teams, and you're looking at the board and looking at the fixtures and saying like, Shrulgan Carib or Kilmaine, like where the hell is that? Like that sounds such a foreign exotic place, and it's only down the road. And I actually, another memory is with my mother at all. We should always joke about this, was the I could we could have a league game and it could be in, say, Ahamore. No matter where it was, if there was a bus, we'd get a bus and be picking me up in the house. I'd always ask my mother, "Oh, we'll say, where's Ahamore?" And the stock answer, the mother always used to give, "Oh, it's just outside Castlebar." Like every club seems to be just outside Castlebar, and like it is technically, like, in a way, because yeah, you wouldn't see any, when at that age, at that time in Ireland, you didn't really do much traveling. You might have a spin down to Achill with your old pair on a Sunday, but that was about it. You wouldn't really go anywhere, like, there was no holidays or none of that crack, or parents are probably too busy working
Yeah,
to do it. So
funny.
that it was an outlet, like.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the overloading the young lads into the back of was the van?
No, it was a
Because
car. I'm nearly sure it was a Seat Toledo, a green one, I think, a diesel.
it,
I can't really remember. Someone, or maybe it was Peter Moore. There's another fella. He's still at matches now in Burrishoole. Peter Moore. I'd say he's in his He's in his 80s, anyways, maybe mid 80s, and he was the guy that really pushed underage football in Burrishoole. He was involved in every team. He'd be bringing national school teams out to play games, and he's still at games, and he's a very distinctive voice. And he's kicked on in years, but he's still as passionate ever about it. And he's a great advocate for letting the ball in, and even to this day, you'll still hear a mutter out him, "Let the effing thing in."
yeah. Well, even that story about the overloading, I've heard that from the lads in Gary Moore when I was training there, and
Yeah.
I heard it off Giz as well. He had a story about that in Carafin. It was the common thing back then. Throw about 10 young lads into the
It
back
was
of
the
a
only
van.
way. It was the only way to get them around. Like, you couldn't go get in a bus every evening, it'd rob you. So that was the way. Look, at people. People will always find a way to get things done. And I think back then there was an innocence to Ireland as well, where
There
it
was,
was for the right reasons. You could break the law as long as it's for the right reasons.
yeah, there was, and I think there was a certain element of boys rough and tumble, like they liked having the crack, and
Yeah,
the more an adventure it seemed like, the better. And if you were doing
yeah.
something a bit daft, like 10 in the back of a car, it all added to
It
the
is. It adds. It
fun.
adds. Like, I know a good friend of mine. He he used to play a good bit of football. I won't name his name now, but he was a decent enough footballer at underage or whatever. And he just stopped when I'd say he was 18, 19 maybe done a year or two, like myself, done a year or two at senior, and just gave up the ghost. But we were talking about there lately over the Christmas, and I asked him, I said, "Why did you actually pack it in, like?" Or, "Why did you stop?" And he goes, "Look at," he goes, "football to me, it was all about the sweets and the crack, stopping at the shop on the way home from an away game. Like, that was it for him. It was the crack on the bus on the way home, and the further away the game, the better." So it was our
Yeah,
outlet. Like, with no internet. When you look at what kids are today, even teenagers, like when I grew up, when I was in Newport, we didn't have the internet. I only got the internet when we were in college. So, you couldn't get the internet. And you never talked to people. Like, when you went home from the evening, that was it. Or you went when school finished for the summer, you mightn't talk to people or see people for 2 or 3 months, and you just adapt. You get on. You don't know there's any different. Now they're constantly connected, but back then, summer trips or football matches. That's the only time you got to see the boys. Like,
yeah. And if you headed off in the bus, which I remember when I was playing soccer and Gaelic when I was young, I could have been going 4 nights a week at for certain periods there in April when the league would be on in both sports.
yeah, double jobbing.
Yeah, and you
And you,
you
you
wouldn't.
might meet different people. See, that was another a section of it. So you could have Like for me, it would have been Burrishoole, would have been Newport, Mulranny, Clamore people, and we'd all been tight. But even though the Clamore lads would have went to school in Clamore, and the
Yeah.
Mulranny lads, we still would have known each other. But then at the same time, you had rugby in Westport, so you got to meet the Westport lads, the Lewisburg lads, the Island 80 lads, the Kilmena lads. Like there was just, you're making social circles before social networking was evolved, or social media was around.
And it was actual networking because you had no phone. You headed off tackle and you were gone for 3-4 hours, and you couldn't look at the phone for 3-4 hours.
No, you had
Even
to talk. You had to
pardon?
talk. You had to
Yeah,
talk to people like that. That's a big thing now. I think with the probably younger, teenagers now. They probably know every footballer in the county, but they don't actually know much about them, bar what they post online. And sure, you're not going to post anything really about yourself that
yeah,
people want to know, bar, the good things, maybe the highlights.
yeah, of course. And then what was your earliest memory of county football?
Oh, the earliest memory of county football for me was going to McHale Park to watch Mayo play Longford in a league game, and I remember getting two hot dogs. There was a fella selling hot dogs and the bacon factory end. And that's my earliest memory. I remember buying one and running out of money and getting money off the older brother to get another one. I think the owl lad brought us. My owl lad like wouldn't be into football at all, and I don't know why he brought us. He must have been in the doghouse that weekend or something. So he tried to take us away for the weekend. But yeah, we went to a game there in Castlebar. It was Longford. I think Longford. I think Mayo hammered them, I'd say. But so that was probably around the time, maybe the 96, 97, or maybe a bit later, but sort of when things started kicking off again for the bandwagon fans. So I wouldn't have went to many Mayo matches when I was younger. I had an uncle who was very heavily involved with Burrishoole. He's passed on since, dead about 10 years. Sean Chambers was his name, and he would have been mad into football, and going to Mayo again, the first time going to Croke Park. I think I went with my mother for the ladies final in '99, and I used to go to the odd big game then with the uncle Sean. He'd be leaving at 6 or 7, silly o'clock early in the morning, and of course parking up at another uncle's house, and I think it was Blanchardstown, and he'd do the steering into town because we didn't know where we were going. So, and he could have a
Yeah,
few pints. So there
I
was a
remember.
couple of games like that.
I remember when I used to go with my brother and my neighbor, 2004, 2006. We used to go all the way to Dublin with 4 or 5 in the back of the car.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
and a few pints probably afterwards. Like,
Probably, yeah.
yeah.
And you wouldn't consider it now. It's crazy how
You
much
wouldn't go.
it's.
You wouldn't go into town. You wouldn't
No,
chance overloading into town and look at road safety and everything else, and you can see what they're trying to do, and that's
yeah,
just the way things go, and there's
yeah,
always more regulations. But yeah, that things were different back then. I even remember you could remember the smoking in the car. I used to smoke on the way up to the games. I'd be puffing on fags the whole way up. Like you wouldn't do it now with young lads in the car. Like you
yeah,
just wouldn't. Like it's just a completely. And in the pubs, I remember being in a packed pub out around Drumcondra, and smoking in the pub, and just a pack. I was like, how can you enjoy this? But obviously, when you're
yeah.
young like that, you don't see the other side of the crack of meeting people and stuff. But
Of
it's
course. And I remember when I was like young like that, I'd be out in Garrymore in the clubhouse playing,
mm.
and you'd be there for 5, 6 hours after the games
Well, that's
playing.
it. That the kids growing up in pubs, like that's gone now. Like you'd be nearly frowned upon to bring 2 or 3 young kids into on a Sunday after mass, and let
Yeah,
throw them a few pound at them off the shop there, and they might sit down and watch a bit of telly, or like that's gone. Like that's nearly gone now. You rarely see that in towns. You see it in Dormicady a bit now because of the local nature of the place, and it's a meeting place. So it's that thing in. I'm living in Dormicady now, at the moment, and that sort of side of rural Ireland is still there. Like it's nice that kids go out the back of the pub and they'll watch the games that are on. They'll play a game of pool or whatever. I don't think you see that too much in towns anymore because of people probably look down at you for bringing kids to a pub. But it's good. It's social. It's meeting people, and it's important that kids get out there and get used to meeting people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It definitely, like I know everyone says it, and it does tie into GA very closely. But like being overprotected isn't good either.
No,
You need.
no. No, you need, like if you were to say to me when I was in secondary school that I'd have a podcast, or obviously there wasn't podcasts back then, but that you'd have a show or a social media presence and that the people would know you, I'd laugh it off because I was a very quiet teenager. Well, I'm still a grumpy enough old git, like, you know. But I was like that. I was short with people in when I was younger, and I probably still am like that. Not maybe not obviously in the podcast and stuff. I open up a bit, like, but I still have that edge of sometimes if I just don't want to talk to someone, I'll just
Yeah,
probably be a
yeah,
bit too blunt. But like, yeah, it's amazing. It's gone. It's every year I kind of surprises myself. Last year now was a big year with it, and it seems to be just sort of growing all the time in
yeah.
certain ways, in different ways. You know, it mightn't be the way I think it was going to go or
Of
whatever.
course,
So
course. But so when did you realize that you absolutely loved the game or absolutely were obsessed in it? I suppose in a way that a lot of others weren't.
um, that is a great question. So I was mad about it and fell out of love with it, and completely just cut it out of my life for a good while.
I think we
So yeah,
do for a period of time, don't we?
yeah. I suppose I got back into everything football under 14s, under 16. Under 16s, I was big into it. We kind of got a bit of a thing going in the club that we had a group of players that were very good and we enjoyed it and we were winning and we got involved that. And then we had the school side of things that we joined up with the Westport lads and everything else. And we had a good schools team. And that all culminated at the time. I was playing rugby as well. I started playing rugby when I was 14 or 15 maybe, and I got involved then. I was in the underage development panels for Connacht. So I went big into the rugby then for a couple of years while playing Gaelic, and it got to the stage then I got to leave insert and I was captain of the Rice College team. So I had to make a
Uh,
call with the rugby and the Gaelic. So swapped. I went with the Gaelic, obviously. I didn't enjoy the rugby. Like I'm wearing a Munster rugby jacket now. I still watch Munster, I still follow rugby, and maybe I pull the piss out of rugby an awful lot on Twitter, and I'd have that edge. But I still love the sport. It's just I just don't like there's a certain aspect of people that follow it that I just don't agree with. And I could see them in the rugby when I was playing it. You go into a rugby dressing room, especially with not maybe not club level, but even at the Connacht level, there's a level of these guys are just not my type. They're not my type of people that I like to enjoy. They don't pull the piss out of themselves or see themselves as who they are. They had an edge to, they thought they were bigger or better than what they were, and I just didn't really get on with many people there.
Yeah, yeah,
So I went
of
back to the
course.
Gaelic then, and then I've went all the way up to fallen in love with it. We got to an All Ireland final in Leaving Cert, and we lost it. And it just I don't know, it broke me. It like I just thought that was the big chance because I knew myself was limited enough, and I was just big and quick, and it just helped at that age. So I knew my chances of running out. So I kind of just went to college then and I'd done it for a couple of months, and I just gave
Were
up. I just got lazy.
were you on the Rice College team the year after then that drew at Coleman's?
No, yeah, no, I was yes, that was the year I was captain. We
But
were
the year before was the All Ireland final, and the year after was the A when you drew at Coleman's. I
no,
was
it
on the
wasn't. No, that was in Clare, was it? It was a draw and a replay. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, I was captain that day, or that year.
that was
Um,
next Rice College team.
yeah, it was. There was a lot of good players on it, like Keegan Doherty, Kevin Kane. We had loads of there was loads of really, really good players. I don't know how I ended up in the middle of it. But
Lewis
we
Colley, Lewis
Lewis
Colley was
Coley as well, Gene Gabb. I think there was like 11 or 12 of them.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think 11 or 12 of them played for Mayo at some stage. There was a talented team. I knew that was the big chance, and we fucked it in the final. We battled. I didn't show up that day. A lot of people didn't, but that really just didn't sit with me. I found it hard to deal with it. And when I went to college, started drinking a lot more, and it just completely fell out of love with the game completely. Um,
But
like just stop
I
watching it.
think, I think everyone like comes to that point at some stage where they fall out of love with it a bit. Even the most talented players, or even the most successful players, like you could even say someone like Jim McConney probably went through a period like that, and he was winning and he was playing well. So, why do you think players go through that? Looking back now in hindsight, And what would your advice to them be if they get to a period like that where they stop enjoying it?
But it's probably down to resilience, Kev, isn't it? It's maybe learning how to take a setback, a bad setback, accepting it, and a lot of people mightn't enjoy it even though they're playing it, and they might realize that maybe that they have a talent, but they can do. There's other things in life, and they find joy in maybe doing other things, and I think it's no harm to experience the setbacks and see what else is on available in the world, or what else you can do, or like them people that fall out and out of love with football, a lot of them come back. And sometimes, it's like anything in life. You don't realize what you have until it's gone, or you're not
Of course,
maybe experiencing it, and there's a false dawn to everything else,
let's
you
say
know.
you'll know the coaching too, as well as your playing and your own experience. But let's say there's two or three players on a panel of 30 every year, at least, that go through that phase.
Yeah.
You know, there's like
Yeah.
that aren't giving it the efforts that they're used to giving. They just don't feel like
They're,
committing the way they normally commit. It's a difficult mental battle, isn't it? Because the
they're
talent,
going, yeah, but I think they're going through, Kev. I think they're going through the motions a lot of the time, and they're just kind of, they probably haven't made a decision on what they want to do, so they're kind of in safe mode with it and just kind of going with it and see what happens, and maybe something might. But you have to look at, I think every player, I think especially at club level now, people's aspirations or their goals, some people set them far too high for what they're able to achieve. There should be people on panels that think they should be starting, but yet they won't put in the commitment, they won't put in the hard work, or maybe they're just not good enough, or the skill level mightn't be there. Now they can still get fit enough and be smart enough to be able, there's plenty of people out there playing club football now that aren't they're not the most skillful footballers in the world, but they're absolute monsters when it comes to preparation, mental preparation, putting the effort in, making sure they're fit enough, being on the training every evening, that their skill level is adequate enough that you can fit into most teams now in Mayo. Work hard, work on your tackling. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have a huge amount of skill to be a good workhorse that can tackle, that can turn ball over and move ball on. Um, so I think people's goals, people probably don't spend enough time. I think players don't spend enough time figuring out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and trying to improve them, trying to improve their weaknesses, and maybe aim for realistic goals. Some people are, you're not going to play every minute of a season. You might be needed for 5-10 minutes and two championship matches for a season. Yet that could be the difference, that team getting to a county final.
yeah,
I think there's a lot of personal. It's not greed. It's true. I suppose everyone wants to achieve things and wants to be successful, but I think you have to be realistic too. You know.
of course, and it's very, that's the beautiful thing about sports in a lot of ways, is what's realistic is probably a very dynamic, as in like 1 year what's realistic, 2 years time something far more impressive could be realistic. So you're constantly juggling with that moving goalpost of, okay, my potential is actually increased an awful lot, and you could be aiming too low with what all of a sudden you got into good habits and you've huge potential.
Yeah, well,
Or
I'm sure you do that, or when you're talking to people, it's short term goals, mid-term, long term. They change a lot of the time, but like things
hmm,
change, Kev. Things change every, like, life is difficult enough at times. Sport is an outlet
yeah.
to
So when you make that decision that, okay, I'm gonna stop playing, because every single person makes that decision at some stage. And I know me as a manager, as a coach, like some of them were absolutely in bits over it. They were cut up over it.
Mhm.
And some of them then were just like, fuck it. I had a good run and it's over. And thanks. I'll see you again.
Yeah, that's exactly, like, I'll tell you the moment. Like, I just want to put it, like, I was too lazy. Like I know when I'm training teams now, and I can see players, like, if there's a shortcut to be found, I'll find it in a drill. Like, I spot the lazy lads through it because I was one of them, and I know, like, I'd never put enough effort into it, and when we went back, I was in first year at the time, and we were down for Paddy's morning for training on the beach, and we got down in Mulranny, and we got the shit ran out of us. Got the shit ran out. We're getting back into the car anyway, and that's where I decided one of the management team. I won't name who he was, but he said to me, he "Goes, whatever you do, Shane, look, just don't go drinking. Don't go back up to Sligo now and go on the piss because you're wasting your time." And I remember hopping into the car, pulling the door, and I just said, "I ain't going on the fucking beer." That was it. And that was it. I don't think I went back after that. Bits and bobs. I went back then playing a bit of, I went through that went through that phase of just giving up, and I think it was a couple of years then. I think I finished college and I went back playing junior, played a bit with the senior team for a while as well. Like when I was minor, I was making or not coming on anyway for championship matches for the senior team. Burrishoole were senior at the time, so like maybe there was a bit of potential there, but I definitely didn't work hard enough to reach
But
potential and like I know now looking back I regret it, but nothing I can do about it now.
but that's
Find it.
that's interesting what you said there, because I've actually talked to a massive amount of players about that, whether the ones when I was coaching teams or the ones one-on-one with the online coaching or the personal training. So like, how come it's easier to be a minor or 18, 19-year-old breaking onto the senior team than it is to be a 21, 22-year-old on the senior team?
Well, straight away, like you'll experience this, so you'll know what I'm talking about. When you're
Would you agree that it's a lot easier? Would you agree that it's
yeah, absolutely, because Kev, when you're in the position of you're a manager and you see a fella that's in minor, the potential reach up from him, you're thinking this guy's 18, he's doing well. If we play him now, he could kick on another level, compared to maybe the 9 to 21-year-old who's been there 3 or 4 years and it's maybe hasn't seen as much improvement, or he's been in college and he's maybe has other distractions in life, and maybe it's harder for this guy to maybe make an impression because he's away with college and he's other things going on. So that comes into it as well. And you have to remember as well, when you're 17, 18, you're basically a grown man in terms of you're very, very, you're able to do an awful lot of training. You don't have any worries about college exams. You don't have any worries about rent. You don't have any worries about a lot of things in life. Maybe the leaving cert. No, I didn't give a shit about the leaving cert. But the you're at home. Everything is made for you. Your clothes is washed. You're in a routine. The bus picks you up from the road at the end of the morning and drops you off in the evening. Your
yeah,
mother or father is making your dinner.
yeah,
Everything is there for you. So it's easier probably to concentrate on that. And no one ever gives out to a manager for playing the young lad. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's we've seen it at intercounty level. It's a handy way out of maybe a team not performing, play the young lads and say you're building for the future.
yeah, yeah. But then on the young lad himself though, because like when you're in school, just like you said, that routine is everything for performance in sport. Like routine is absolutely everything. And without even thinking about it at 15, 16, 17, 18, if you're lucky enough with a bit of genetics, you have a bit of pace or strength or whatever it is, and then you have a good routine, as in you're waking up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every night, you're going to school at the same time every day, you're what else? You're eating very similar foods and a very similar amount of calories or an amount of protein every day. It's perfect for sports performance. And then when you go to college, all of that goes out the window. You're waking up and you're going to bed at different times. Your foods are completely different because you might get a meal deal on a pizza on a Tuesday, or if you're a student or whatever. So your food changes, and all of a sudden you have to make loads of decisions about rent, about part-time jobs, about what time to wake up at, and of course, add women or men into the mix then as well. Your first serious relationship, it makes life so much more complicated. Even though theoretically you should be 2 or 3 years down the road and a better athlete.
Yeah, you're spot on, especially with the stuff you're eating and the routine. It's something people don't forget about, and you have to factor in as well, Kev. A lot of these lads, even nowadays as well, especially with the price of rent and stuff, you have to have a part-time job nearly to fund the college lifestyle or just to have a decent lifestyle. So that pressure of making sure your rent is paid, picking that over a training session on a Friday night or a Sunday morning, like people
Mm.
have to make that decision. It's not as cutthroat, I suppose, for young lads or young women to just commit carte blanche to just saying, yeah, I'll be there every Friday and Sunday morning now for the next 9 months, even though it's gonna cost me my whatever else.
Yeah, I've had that conversation so many times with players. Um, and I think it's sometimes, it used to make me very angry or sometimes even a bit sad when that talented player would be getting pillared then by the local press or online or whatever else, and people just hadn't a clue. Like, he's playing badly because he's so much stress, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
where people don't really factor that in. He could be a great young lad. He's just stressed to the nth degree from all these different things that he wasn't when he was 20. He has these worries now at 22, 23 that he didn't have when he was 18, 19. It's not out of lack of desire.
Yeah, definitely. It's awful easy, and I know even in my game now, it's awful easy to pick up on, say, this fella for Mayo isn't playing well, and sure, we don't know what's going on. We don't
Yeah.
know, like, if has he trained for 3 weeks, or what's going on in his personal life, or what's going on at work or college or everything else, and we're just kind of saying, "Oh, he's not good enough. He's not good enough." But it's awful easy to point the finger and sit in the fence and sit in the stand and come up with the things. I'd be conscious of that too.
You
Uh,
would. You would.
yeah, you
Fairness.
have to be. You have to. You have a level of responsibility. Like I have a level of responsibility now when it comes to that sort of stuff to not just sort of go to. And I don't think I do, and I never like it, even when I tweets and stuff like that, I wouldn't get personal. I don't think there's no benefit. There's people out there that do it, and I don't know why they do it. Is it because they can't? They feel like they have to justify their opinion, or they're trying to be important or something, or trying to get attention nearly for themselves.
The thing, well, the way I often thought about it, and to give you credit, I do think you do a good job of being pretty balanced and not going too personal in any criticism, because it's not just exclusive to Gaelic football. It's all sports, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't soccer, if it's American football, if it's whatever else. The, the press or the media hammers down on athletes who are underperforming. It's part and parcel of it, and if you can't handle it, you're in for a short career. You definitely won't fulfill your potential. But
It's part of it now, Kev. It is part of the game now, yeah, for them lads. Professionals anyway.
it is. But even that's the thing about the GA, they're not professionals and they get just as much in ways.
They do. They probably get more. See, the thing about it as well, especially in Mayo, Kevin, there'll be people outside of Mayo that listen to this podcast. There's a lot of people don't realize there's no other real sport in Mayo than Gaelic
No.
football. We don't really have a massive rugby scene. We have a couple of like I think there's 3 soccer clubs in South Mayo. So people are on about we have maybe 2 rugby clubs. There's Ballinrobe and Claremorris. I don't know, there's another one. But you have 5 other teams in South Mayo or adult level that play sports. So GAA is massive in South Mayo, and when you're living in Mayo, I think the microscope it's zoned in a lot closer on every game and every even club game and everything else that goes on with it. I think there's a lot more attention given to people in football. 'Cause I always say it's the only show in town is GA and Mayo really like, and I follow soccer in Mayo. I was
It
at
is.
Westport and Ballinrobe and the rugby there for the Christmas. I do try and get to games. I do try and get to see other sports. I enjoy other sports. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, GA seems to be just everything,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm sitting here in the spare room in my house on Friday at a 1:45 talking to you
Yeah.
about this whole thing the reason I'm here is because GA is so popular.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, like, on that, like, you do have journalists in every sport who are, they've made a name out of themselves for being the Simon Cowell of whatever sports, where they're just going over the top on criticism. Like, the thing about being that negative about people is it does it is hilarious sometimes when you have someone who's criticizing someone else. It's misery loves company, and sometimes it is really funny to take the piss out of someone, or it is. But there's a certain line, and that line is very gray area, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and sometimes you're probably better just stay with with the positive side of things or just speaking facts. I think tends to be the accepted way, and I agree with it because there's people out there, especially in the national media, they probably don't meet these people or don't have any ideas if they find it, they slam them for whatever reason, but they don't see the repercussions. So you have to.
Hypothetically, if you were to go on the podcast the next day and slam A, B, and C from the current Mayo panel or whatever, it would get a lot of attention very, very quickly. It would get a lot of very quickly. People are very, very interested. It's very clickbaity. People want to hear that.
It's easy. It's easy in a sense to do it, but like you have to remember, like I was when I started the page first, I was anonymous. I was awful heavy, and I was like, I look back at some of the stuff I was saying about criticism of players, like it's hindsight's a great thing, but I'd regret all that sort of stuff. I could have been. I was very personal at times, but now I realize, obviously, when you maybe with age or just growing a bit older as well, you realize there's a bigger audience now, and it's you don't want to be a dickhead. No one wants to be you don't want to be a dickhead or upsetting someone just to please maybe these piranha out there that are looking for this negative news or want critics to want people to criticize so make them feel better.
Yeah.
They're not worth pleasing, I don't think. Fair and balanced as much as you can. There's times obviously when someone is playing bad, you'll say it, but you don't have to go to town on them. Like they know, everyone knows. Like you don't need this justification or vindication to go after someone.
Yeah.
And people see through that after a while. People will notice that you have a gripe on someone or you're constantly on at the same agenda, and people get sick of that.
Yeah, it's not. There's a bitterness to it that isn't nice.
There is, and
But
no one likes it. The people that like that aren't the people you want to listen to the
no,
pod, really.
no. But then I remember I did a podcast with Giz last year and it went down really well. But one of the questions I said to him, one of the things I said to him was, see, you can't really be positive if you're too naive to even see the negative. You can only really be positive if you see the positive and the negative and you choose the positive,
Yeah.
So one thing about Giz was like, he sees a lot of the negative, but he still remains very positive and loves the game. And I would say the same thing about you, as in like you're obviously aware of the negatives and GA, there seems to be a lot of negativity around the sport all the time, whether it's fixtures, whether it's the
team selections or everything else. Now, this is a caveat, Kev. Here, I fucking love complaining about football and giving out, right? But I don't do it on the pod. Like people that know me know I love a good rant about X, Y, and Z on the Mayo team or whatever else. Like I like this idea that I'm not like I am balanced when it comes to the podcast and comes to promoting stuff. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I am, and I will err on the side of balance and play devil's advocate when it's needed on the pod. But like I do love a rant as much as anyone else, but maybe not as public now.
That's the question, basically. Is we do love rant, and Giz loves a rant as well. He won't mind me saying. But the how do you keep it? How do you stay positive despite what's like? Especially for you, you would benefit from putting out negativity every week. You gain more followers, you get more shares, you get a lot of interest.
The highest number of pods, the most listened to podcasts I have are all the ones when Mayo get bet.
Of course.
Well, bar that in the club football, the quarterfinals or third round. But a lot of the higher number pods are the ones where they want to hear what people think, I suppose, and that's fine. Well, you said, how do you keep it balanced? You just have to. I could have John and End on the pod or Roner maybe, and we get talking. And if I think one of them is steering too far one way, then I'll give the counter argument and put that balance there and show that, hold on now, we're not all thinking that's only you, or you think X or I think Y for certain reasons, and we'll debate it then, and maybe John might come in or Enda might come in or Ronan, and we'll have a lot of people say that the podcast is the closest thing you can get to 3 or 4 lads sitting at a bar in Mayo on a Tuesday evening, and it's just lads talking it out, talking about what they thought of the weekend. And that's what it is. That's the USP of the pod, that it's that sort of way about keeping it positive. I'll keep it. I keep it balanced. I like to keep it at 12 o'clock. You know, pucks can come in at and keep it one way or the other. But I like to keep a sort of level of a fairness to it as well. You know, and it's good. Debate is healthy. If it gets
It
people
is.
talking, it's good.
It's like a bar stool conversation. It's definitely like that, but it also reminds me of some of my favorites parts of coaching in the GA was where I'd be involved in a team and you might have three selectors or whatever,
Yeah,
and or you'd be back in the dressing room or inside room, freezing cold on a piss and rain day in the winter, and you'd be dissecting the other team,
yeah,
and you'd be planning how to take them apart, or you'd be doing the post-mortem on the game that happened the weekend before. It's very similar to that, which I think people enjoy being involved in those conversations because there's a lot of genuine passion in them.
yeah,
Even if even if you're completely different opinion wise, like some of the ones I was involved in were extremely fiery. Like you
yeah.
wouldn't believe, you know.
And I think us, myself, John, and Enda and Ronan. I think people listen as well. People, when they're having that debate or they're having that conversation, whether an extra sweeper is required or they're not letting the ball in or they're holding on possession base too much. I think we as well learn from each other.
Yeah.
We can see the other side of the argument, and maybe 6 months down the line we might be thinking that way when it comes, or something might happen that we be thinking. But I do think it's definitely opened my eyes up to, even on the coaching sense of things, even though it's a bit of crack and stuff, I do pick up an awful lot from, even from the guests and stuff, when they're talking about football and what they see and the stuff there that I might never have copped. And
Mm,
I do pick up from that, like
mm,
along with the meeting the fella in the street, that having the debate, like,
mm. Well, just you touched there on the coaching. Um, when did you start coaching and why?
I started properly. I think I done a year with like an under 21 team Burshul, but I think some younger brother was involved where I just wanted to give a hand. That was probably the first thing. But when I went to England, then um when I came back from England, I met my wife beforehand and we moved to Sligo, and I was living in Ballasdare, and I was talking to a friend of mine from Newport, and he put me in contact with a fella from Omar Gales, Trevor Sweeney, Joey, he's called. And I just met him one night in the clubhouse. I said, "Look, I'm moved to the area and I want to get involved with the club or whatever else." And they were like, "Yeah, we've a minor team there. If you want to get involved with that, you can help out whatever else, the senior team." So got involved with that, and that was the first
How,
kind of.
how old were you then?
Oh, I'd say I was. Well, how old am I now? So I'd say four. I'd say it's 28, maybe
Okay,
29.
so young for coaching.
Yeah, young enough, like, but considering I hadn't really played much. I essentially I went back when I came back from college. I finished college, was on the dole. I went back playing football and went on this big push playing for a year. Um, and got back into shape and was playing, but then went to England and just kind of gave it up again. So I hadn't played in a while, but I was still had an interest in it. I had an interest when 2012 when college was over in 2012. That's when I got a go for it again. Um, I had registered with the club, and you pay your membership, you get entered into the Mayo draw, whatever it's called. So I actually won a Mayo season ticket.
Hmm.
And that was really the start of me. How did I know I was cracked? When I was at a junior B final between Ballycastle and someone else in McHale Park, and because I had free into every game, so I
Yeah,
used to just check the calendar or check the schedule or fixtures if I was coming back down from Sligo or anywhere. I just go to games, and I was like, I love this. I love getting all this knowledge and all these players in these lower clubs. So that's why
yeah.
I kind of got into it. And then I went to England, came back, and got involved in Romore Gales. And I actually went back playing then the year after, but that was only for junior B.
Like, did you like the coaching straight away?
Yeah, I had an interest in it anyway. Because I had an interest in how things, I always used to take heed of training sessions and how they were ran. And because you're, when you're a lazy prick like me, you want things, I'm here for the next hour, it better be done right, or this better be interesting, or make it some way enjoyable and not being ran up and down the field. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I do. I had a certain level of interest in it, and I knew. I think since 2012, since I watched that final, I was above in the hill and watching Mayo get tore apart down the wings and stretched open down the middle. I was like, I can see what's going on. How are they not fixing it? I knew I could watch football or figure out what was going on, and I kind of just had it in the back of my head then that I'll definitely get involved with coaching, and got involved then. And yeah, I've been involved nearly every year since. I took a year out there with the pod, I think in the second year, just to give it a good bit of energy, but I kind of balance both now. I'm managing Tormakady this year now, the local club. I'm living here, so we're actually
Mm.
starting tonight. So I'm looking forward to getting going.
And when you started coaching, did anything about coaching GA players surprise you in terms of, you obviously had all of this theory in your head, well, why aren't managers doing this, or why aren't coaches doing this, from your days as a spectator? When you went in and actually started to coach, was there anything that stood out to you as in, okay, this isn't as simple as it seems?
No, I think the level of preparation, definitely. The level of preparation for sessions and spending an hour before training, making sure you know what you're doing and have everything laid out. That was a big, big thing for me. And maybe as time went on, um, it was maybe knowing what you wanted to tell the players and making sure that your message was as simple as could be, so that everybody understands it. Because if you sit in a classroom, teacher is telling you something, 4 or 5 lads get it, 10 are half listening, and there's 5 at the back that are going, what the hell is he on about? I'm not even going to try and understand it. So trying to
Yeah.
simplify it, I think, was the big thing for me. Break it down into what it's all about. That
And
was
how did you do? So when I was coaching, I was fascinated by communication styles, and I still am, because it's like part of my job at the minute is how to communicate a message clearly so that behavior will change, or and behavior will change not in a you have to do this, in a okay, I'm going to tell you this so that you want to change.
yeah,
So what I learned very quickly was that, very similar to what you're saying there, you have a visual learning, and then you have audio, and then you have oral, so like you're talking to the dressing room, and then you have a walkthrough, so like you're not actually training, but you're like walking through. When this goes here, you go here. When this goes here, you go here. And I used to always, if ever I was trying to implement anything, any style of play, any tactic, any kick out, I would always do all three. I would do visual, like video analysis and X's and O's on your whiteboard, and then I would make sure I would communicate my voice very, very clearly in a concise enough manner. And I would always kind of suss out, okay, that fella is definitely not going to get what I'm saying. So you might ring him afterwards, you might text him.
yeah.
Uh,
And you
then
have to
you
go through it, Kev, a couple of times. Like, there's no once off. It has to be hammered home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so that was, but I found that challenge, I found that challenge of getting that message across fun, because
yeah.
sometimes you'd feel like I'm at this 2 months now and nothing is changing, and next thing it just clicks, and suddenly you're playing massive football again.
Yeah,
So
that's the doubt you'll have. You'll have, like, the doubts never go away when you go into a dressing room or you go into a new group. I found that now because I've had different groups and I've been to different teams, and you still have that doubt going in, even though you know your game plan or you know exactly what you want to do. You're still thinking, are these lads going to get it? Are they going to buy into it? Like you said there about the audio, maybe the way you speak is awful important. I had a coach. We had a manager in Rice College, Shane Conway.
mm,
He's involved with Westport now. I thought his speaking style, or he had a very large booming voice, and it was very, very clear instructions, and was always pushing you to the limit, and being, it was never just roaring for the sake of roaring or effing and blinding, he was always very clear, concise, and instruction. And I suppose I've kind of taken it from him. Like, it's a great way to be, that the voice carries across the pitch, that lads know exactly what you want, and that you're not just talking nonsense for the sake of it.
yeah. Well, I think definitely when I was speaking in the dressing room on game day, I used to study American football coaches and soccer managers a lot for communication styles. So, but definitely there's an American football coach called Nick Saban. I don't know, he's with Alabama. I don't know if you've ever heard
I've
of him.
heard the name, yeah.
Very, very good if you look into him. But one of the things I took from American football, then Belichick as well, obviously. But if you should only have two messages on game day because that's all that they're going to take in. So everything else should be done before, like, so it should be like, okay, press their kick out in this way and move the ball quick, don't go into contact. That might be the two messages. You might feel like you want to communicate 10, but if you communicate 10, you communicate none. If you communicate two, two will sink.
Yeah, it's easy. You can only load lads with so much. If the work isn't done prior, it's very hard to overload them. Because I've been involved with dressing rooms where there's lads talking for the sake of talking, and you might come out with one thing, and another fella then is talking about something completely different. And by the time the team talk is over, the lads are none the wiser, and they're your bet.
Yeah,
I do always say that, and it's especially I like to take those 2 or 3 minutes when the halftime whistle goes outside the dressing room and talk to the backroom team and decide between the lot of us what's the message we're going in here with. What's the 2 or 3 most important things we need to fix.
yeah,
That's all we can do. We can only fix the most important things, and hopefully the rest it'll figure itself out.
yeah. Because you do have that thing with a dressing room, someone goes in and they start talking, and next thing they're making it up as they go along. They're around the dressing room. They're like, and you better mark tight, and you in front of your man, you make sure you track, and it's like it's all made up, and it's definitely more harm than good because it's
Yeah,
just scrambling the concentration of the players,
I
and
do, I
you're
do, I do compare it to a sheepdog, and there's 3 lads shouting different things, 3 different things at the sheepdog. The sheepdog just sits down on the ground. He even knows, he's like, there's no point here trying to, because you're being pulled left, right, and center.
yeah, it is. It's funny, but then so how there's actually a book I could recommend to you. It's called Talk Like Ted. Do you know TED Talks?
Yeah,
And it's very, very simple book, very easy to read, but it helped me a lot with public speaking. But then that's an underrated benefit of coaching is how much it improves your public speaking and your communications. Like you're in front of 20 lads 3 times a week. I was for 12 years. So 20, 30 lads 3 times a week for 12 years. It's some amount of practice to get in on presenting in front of an audience. So
yeah.
that obviously takes us then to you doing that online then with the podcast. So how did you start RF? And I think it was it Snapchat first you started on?
No, Twitter. It was Twitter. It was so when I will say, I'm not even sure the year. The page is around since 2013, but like it was my own personal account. It was just my own name. But I at one stage then I just got sick of social media, and I deactivated my Instagram, my Facebook. They're still gone. I kept my Snapchat and I kept Twitter, but I changed the name to some generic page, and just to keep an eye on the football. And then maybe I missed it. Maybe I missed that social interaction for a while. So I changed the name of the page to RF because all I used Twitter for was Mayo GA scores and Mayo
And how,
updates. And
how name RF?
I decided with it because it's the one thing you're guaranteed to hear at matches. You hear it every day. No matter what match you go to, there's always an RF. And I do always, even when I'm involved in the line myself and people roar, it does prick my ears sometimes. I'm kind of like, yeah, it's a great name. It's a
Yeah.
simple name. It's just one of these things where you just hear it everywhere, no matter where you go in the country, no matter what level. There's always people going RF. So it was free advertising, wasn't it?
And even players say it as well.
Did you? Of course they do. Of course, it's the people love complaining. I suppose that's I started the page with the intention of just running polls. I mean, like, do you think Mayo are going to beat Galway? Should James Horan play David Clark or Rob Henley? And just me not having an opinion and just letting other people have their opinion through the polls, and it's not, and I can't, people can't go to me and go, oh, you said this and that, but it kind of evolved then, and I was doing polls, and then I was started doing. I have a massive spreadsheet on the laptop.
The polls were very popular though, weren't they?
They are, and they still are. Like, people will message me the week of championship wanting to know the polls for the club games. Like, people are mad for the polls. People love public opinion.
Yeah.
But I at the time I had a monster of a smart sheet where I'd every club team in Mayo, every divisional cup game, league game, championship game, their scoring stats, points scored, goals scored, averages, you know, points conceded, everything that you could imagine, what they average win by, the percentage of what they're scoring. I just got massive, and I still have the spreadsheet. It's crazy the amount of stuff that work that went into it. And I done a WordPress and added to that, and then I do up a little like preview of the weekend games and who I think is going to win and why they're going to win. And then I started, like, obviously I was going to all these games, so then I started tweeting scores, and that got a bit of crack because people were like, "Oh, he was at the game, I didn't spell him," or "Who was he?" Or then I'd pick up
Yeah.
news. Like, I don't see. I think it was the time Cara Finn or Rochford was getting appointed as the Mayo manager, and he told the Cara Finn lads. And I heard
Yeah.
that night then from a friend of mine that's friend with a Cara Finn player, oh, Rochford's going. So I had this been news. I was telling him, like, he's gone. He's going to Mayo. Like, this is a done deal. And then like a
Yeah.
week later, it's like, oh, big news. He's going. I was like, oh, I hear all this sort of rumors and whispers around the place. You always hear them way before the paper. So I was like, do you know what? Because I used to be obsessed with reading the paper and getting the news and seeing what's
Yeah.
going on. And I was like, do you know what? I might just put up a couple of things here about club managers and everything else, and what goes on, and this is going to happen, or this fella is going to be training this team, and it just blew up. And I think the anonymity of the whole page added to it, because everybody wants to know who everyone is in Mayo GA circles. Like, the Mayo GA is built on everybody trying to be somebody. So when you have a fella that doesn't want to be seen, everybody wants him. Like, so everyone wants to know who he is.
Quote unquote, Mayo GA is full of people who want to be somebody.
It is. That's the core principle from what I've gathered over the years. Anyway,
Explain that to me. I like that one.
well, it's just, if you look at, like, from top to bottom, everybody's concerned about their own dung heap. In the vast majority, there is good people there, but the vast majority they'd be more worried about their own job, role, position. I'm not saying
That,
player than the whole thing doing well. I've noticed with a lot of people I've dealt with over the years.
but that's the nature of any government, a lot of businesses, a lot of sports clubs.
Is
Is
it
like,
is it a nature, Kevin, of successful sports clubs?
mm, well, no,
No,
successful keep them out, don't they?
they
They
do.
keep out people
Yeah.
who are there, sake of being there.
Now, don't get me
You,
wrong, there's loads of great people, and I'll never get personal, but there's an awful lot of people out there that their only concern is that they're somebody and that they can be somebody in terms of an organization. And it's
yeah,
because I've been around to a lot of clubs. I've talked to thousands of people about everything, about from top to bottom. I've been involved in the academies for 3 years. I've been involved now. I'm actually at the National League press conference next Thursday for the launch of the league. I got an invite there today. I'm looking forward to questioning a couple of the Mayo managers and management on a few bits. But yeah, there's an awful lot. There's an awful lot of good people, but there's an awful lot of people that they're not too worried if Mayo wins Sam Maguire. I don't think, myself personally,
they just want
to
to
be
be
somebody.
middle of something.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Unfortunately,
how much of a detrimental impact do you think that has?
well, it's huge. But if you look at we've had, is it the difference in us winning and losing on Ireland? I don't know, but I don't think it helps.
No.
I don't think things are like, we don't even have a place to train underage teams yet. Like, we've a pitch and a half there in Castlebar, and it's destroyed half the time of the year, because not because the pitch is bad, but it's just the traffic that's on it. And we've 70 under 14, 60 under 16s, and 50. We could have a couple, nearly 150 underage players on a Saturday around Castlebar there training. It's very hard to keep things going, and there's a lot of good people in the academies. Don't get me wrong. A lot of I learned so much when I went into the academy, the coaches
Isn't
side
the
of things.
was in the academy for 2 years with Owen Sweeney and Eugene Lavin and Billy Mack and Mike Fitzmaurice as well.
Yeah,
And I had such a good experience. I had
yeah.
really enjoyed being involved with them. They were great guys to have around.
They're good guys. No, they're good guys. And they're definitely like I know, chatting to Owen a good bit through the football now as well. Like I'd have great time for Owen Sweeney. He's 100%. But even our own little team we had with Tom Mulderry, he's actually managing Ballintubber this year now. I learned so much off him, and then the likes of Kevin Filan, Pork O'Connor, Gareth O'Donnell, Liam Nyland, Francis Regan, Donald Kelly. Really, just there was some really good. We were a good group of people that we were all there for the right reasons, and there was
Yeah.
no egos or bullshit, and it was really enjoyable. And we'd do anything. If we're asked to go up to Hamor on a Sunday morning, we'd be up there.
Yeah. So you think that it's the bureaucracy or higher up that causes issues or whatever?
I think it's had an effect. I think it'd be, you know, I think it's
Yeah.
definitely had an effect on the overall product of Mayo
Well,
football. Yeah.
we won't stick on that topic for too long, but I think it's important probably not to ignore it all the
No,
same.
no.
So then you have, so you started your Instagram, your Snapchat, your Twitter. You now have 50,000 or 60,000 followers across the platforms and
Jesus.
500,000 downloads of the podcast, which is absolutely incredible, because I'm obviously not doing the same thing as you, but I'm definitely trying to build an audience for my online business, for online coaching, and it's far more difficult than people would think or people would presume. I think you'll agree. It's not an easy thing to do is build an audience, especially to build an audience that trusts you, and
Yeah.
your audience trusts you like gospel, what you say. That's probably why you feel responsible for saying, speaking the truth and being quite measured, is because they trust you and take what you say quite seriously. So how do you think you've built that up over time? It doesn't matter if someone wants to sell something, some product or service, or whether they want to promote something like your show. Like, how would you build an audience, or why do you think your audience trusts you so much?
I think it's organic. Now there was an awful lot of work put in when you talk about the end product. The podcast it's brilliant, and that we've got this many listens and we have such a core following. But you have to go back to the beginning where the RF page was putting up scores every weekend where they couldn't find the scores. So I started a WhatsApp group. I have a WhatsApp group going with about, I think it's like 280 people in it, and it's
The inf
yeah.
the infamous Griff WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I can add you if you want, Kev. But but what it was originally was it still is technically scores and updates. So when the page started first, there wasn't too many clubs that would tweet scores. And when you're involved in a management team, or you want to know how X, Y, and Z are, if they've won or if they've lost, that dictates what you're going to do next week. If you're through to the quarterfinals, you've avoided relegation. So
Well, before you go on, like, I wonder how many times I've checked that page. It must be hundreds now. I
yeah.
was coaching for 12 years, and 10 years were senior teams in Mayo. I must have checked that page hundreds of times, and it's extremely important and useful.
It is, and we didn't have that at the time. Now we do. Like I've stopped putting up the scores. Maybe championship, I'll go on a spree of like I'll sit in front of the laptop. I'll have Twitter open, and I'll have a game being streamed. I'll have my phone going. I'll be copy and pasting results, putting them up. Love it. Love that buzz. 3 games on a Saturday, cup of coffee, 20 Marlboro Golds, driving around the county, rushing and racing. I love it. I love that buzz, and it's rushing to grounds and getting games in and taking photos, videos, meeting people. Boom, boom, boom. It's a
It's like
great.
it's like one of the hackers in the Matrix with all the screen.
Yeah, and I'd have the WhatsApp going. I'd have people I'd know at matches that mightn't be on Instagram. I'd be ringing people, but that's changed now with the coaching. But it comes back to having that. I suppose that was a resource for people back in when it started. Was RF will have the scores up, or I'll have the tables up. But now clubs are doing that. They're all doing that themselves. The clubs realize the importance of social media. So I kind of stepped back from that. So I built an audience that were mainly GAA people and people that are interested in football on the Twitter page. And then a bit of news coming out every so often. I'd have, ref, I heard that, or, I'm hearing this or that. People, it was over time. It was years of building that page, that Twitter page. And then I put on the Instagram page, the WordPress article, the Facebook, the Snapchat. What else was there? It was just
But
kind of
that
hitting as many audiences as I could with information that people wanted. And that was, I suppose, the growth of my core audience. So I had a platform built before the Snapchat started. See, what a lot of people problems I see where people do podcasts now is they might have a great product, but they've no way of getting it to people, or no way of getting to people's phones. And because I had the following on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, I had the set following already. So they were seeing this all the time, that there was a podcast. You could have a great podcast, but you might only have a couple of hundred followers on your Instagram account. No one's going to see it, like, unless you get a couple of massive names to go on the pod, which it's very hard to do because they're not going to give up their time for nothing, and you can't afford to be spending a fortune on big names to share it then and everything else. So it's that's where it came. The loyal following, I think, came from me driving around the county for 2 or 3 years every weekend, going to as many games as I possibly could and putting up scores, results, stats, everything else. So there was a core, and then the podcast
was
came along. I had the platforms to share it.
was there an end game in sight?
No.
Was there okay, I'm doing this to get this result?
It used to be I thought it'd be like, oh, it'd be nice to have an opinion that
Have any KPIs? Did you have any KPIs?
no KPIs. I still don't have any. I still have absolutely no idea what I want to do with it or where it's going, or it's literally wake up in the morning, I might start the pod. Yeah, we'll start a pod.
I get that all the time, especially in the last couple of years. People have asked me loads of times about the gym and about the online coaching. It's like, oh, what was your plan? And I was like, I literally never had a plan longer than 6 months. It was literally buy a leg press or buy a few dumbbells. That's as much as the plan went. And these things just gather momentum.
They do, and I kind of fell into it maybe, I had the passion, I had the interest, and I loved meeting people from other clubs and, making connections and talking to people or whatever else. And it kind of just grew into that, and then the interest, and then put a bit of work online and put the whole thing together and had that platform. And then like the content itself is created every weekend. With me watching the TV, because there's teams playing, there's stuff happening, there's stories in the news. It's very easy to make content for the pod because it's literally you pick up the fixtures and the results and go through them. They're printed out, they're emailed to you, and it's like, yeah, Ballintubber bet Castlebar. Yeah, but it's just Ballintubber team going to win, whatever,
Yeah, is that simplicity of it? Is that the appeal?
Yeah, I think so. I think people appreciate that it's rough as a bear's hole at times. Whether it be, there's been some great moments people highlight, like the day we're doing a podcast one evening, and Enda keeps looking at the roof, and I'm talking. I think halfway through my sentence, I stopped and I said, "What are you looking at?" And the leak, the roof was leaking, and he's like, "Ref, the roof is leaking here. I better go." And he runs off, and he goes upstairs, and whatever, and realizes the shower was left running, and he comes down again, and it's like I leave that in the pod, like it's kind of like we're so. It's so amateur. Like John's dog might come in barking, and then someone might have to come in. Sinead might have to come in and take the dog out, and he'd be like, "Oh, sorry, that was the dog." And like people be ringing in and stuff. I know one of the early podcasts. This is the simplicity of the pod. Is so we used to just do it in the car in Kilkelly, because Enda being Claremorris, I used to live in Tubbercurry at that stage. So we'd meet halfway, and we just hit recorder and buy the Mayo News and the Western People. And you'd literally hear us moving the page over, talking about games, and going, "Oh, look, this is what happened in this game." And then one of the days we're parked around the side. Paddy Finnegan, who's managing Clare Galway now, I think he was managing Eastern.
No microphones or anything, just
a phone recorder, Hawaii phone. I have the same P30 Pro for the last 4 or 5 years anyway. and it's excellent. Like there was no need because there's two microphones, one on each end. So I used to just put it on the armrest and hold it like this, and I talk in one side and then they talk in the other, and it worked. But Paddy Finnegan, we were doing midway through recording the pod, and I had the phone left up like this, and he comes, obviously sees us in the car, and he goes like, "Oh, geez, two lads, I better go over and say hello," and knocks on the window, and I literally roll the window down. I'm like, and just joined here now with Eastern Gales manager Paddy Finnegan, and his face drops. And he's like, "Oh, you're not doing the pod, right?" I was like, "Yeah. What you making the weekend, Paddy? Are you going to win, whatever?" And it's just like, it's so ad hoc, the whole thing. Like there's no notes, there's no production meeting. It's we've a WhatsApp group and we put in a time and then we go on it and then we're like, right, any crack? No, we go, bang, off we go, and then that's it. It's just there's no planning to it. Like it's natural. It's not
And
forced. It's three fellas that know an awful lot. Now, people mightn't agree with us at times about certain things or agree with certain people's
no,
aspects, but
no,
we do have
I
I think we have the right at this stage to talk about it because we do go to an awful lot of games.
of course, and I think everyone has the right to talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
whether you go to fucking, I don't know, 5 games a year or 105, like you have free speech. You can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I suppose what people confuse is not everyone has the right to an intelligent opinion. You know,
Yeah.
you have the right to an opinion, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a good one. And if someone tells you your opinion isn't great, you should be able to take it, especially if you haven't been putting in the hours. You know.
Yeah, guests as well. Like we'd be very take it or leave it. Like, you know, we there's no major planning with our guests. We might contact them that day. Like I might be on the beer Sunday, so I'll wake up Monday. I have absolutely no interest in life or dealing with anything. And I'm like, and they'll be ringing me, who we getting? I will talk about tomorrow. And then Tuesday morning kicks in, it's like, who we getting on the pod? It's like, Mayo are playing Roscommon. Oh, who can we get? So we might throw a couple of names and go, how do we contact these people? And we end up like, I might DM them on Twitter or know somebody that knows them and make a phone call, go, come here, will you go on this for a half an hour? And it's like, they come on, then they're like, oh, so we're like, there's no plan here. We just go with the breeze. And majority guests love it because they're like, yeah, sound, yeah, we'll go with it. And then I always say with the caveat, I'm like, yeah, if there's anything completely out of the ordinary you don't want to talk about, we can cut it out. We've never had to
I
cut out, I guess.
I remember when I went on for the marathon that time to try and get a bit of awareness. We did a phone call beforehand, like maybe 2 or 3 days beforehand for 10 minutes, and you said this is actually the first time I've ever done this. And you were at least 102 episodes in at that stage, but you're like, this is the first time you ever put any preparation or
Yeah,
anyone asked a phone call beforehand,
there's
which is wild.
never but I think people can see that. I think people can see that I might have two or three things in my head, obviously. Well, like when I'm driving home from work, I have an hour drive every evening. That's when I do my thinking, either for training or for the pod. I'll come up with two or three big questions, and I'll start off the general one and talk about the reason they're there, and then I'll listen, and I'll just listen to them speak. And if I think there's something interesting that they've brought up within them 3 or 4 sentences, that's where I go with the conversation. It rolls into another thing, and I open another door, and I'll be thinking and talking, and they be talking. I'll try and then sort of maybe go on a tangent about something else and bring it back, and I think it puts them at ease when they know that there isn't a line of questions coming for them.
Yeah, it's definitely very. I wanted to pick your brains on this, so
Yeah.
it's inspiring for me in my own podcast. I think I definitely overcomplicated. I think a lot of podcasts now they're trying to set up a mini RTE, aren't they?
They're trying to be all this structured and have their people. There's too much of that shit out there now. There's too
There
much
is.
like RT, like Jesus Christ, the GAA and RT, like, and I know Keegan. I'd be mates with him. I'd have good time from him. Jeez, I can't watch it. Like it's pure shite. Like it's
No, I haven't watched it for years. I haven't
yeah.
watched it for.
It's not their fault. It's just the way they want it the producer wants it to run now. It's so structured, and you're just going to talk about this little thing and move on. And you can tell that they've done their little bit of research and they've their
It's
4 or 5 lines.
very plastic. It's very
It's
fake.
it's manufactured. It's manufactured speak. Like it's
Yeah.
people want to be wondering what the hell is he going to talk about next, or where's he going with this? Is he going anywhere with this? or is he just talking gibberish? Pat Spillane had a great paragraph in his book about Joe Brolly, how he'd spend 3 or 4 minutes talking about, he'd make up that he met someone famous on the way into the pitch and tell a story, and he'd have his 3 or 4 minutes covered before, and then he'd pick up 1 or 2 names and just on about the game, and you know, people loved it. You know, we don't need, like, a vast majority of people need a small bit of analysis. You know, leave that to the Sunday game and give them an in-depth analysis later on. Half time, you want a general rundown of the game, what's going on, what you think's going to happen. Don't be bogging it down. It's for entertainment purposes. Football, people forget that. If you're watching it in a pub or you're watching it at home, it's for entertainment purposes. It's not for.
I agree, and I think that was one of the things I had a firm grasp of when I was coaching. Is like, this is a hobby, and it should be fun. And what I think about Gaelic football, I don't really follow any other sport. And I absolutely, like, I was obsessed with Gaelic football. Like, the amount of hours I was putting into it when I was coaching, like, between stats, I was doing all the stats myself, with a small bit of help from certain guys, but I was still going through every piece of statistics myself. I was doing all the video analysis myself and editing the video. I was planning the training sessions, planning the tactics. I was doing everything by myself, but I was very aware then that Gaelic football is a very entertaining sport. If you have 2 evenly matched teams, it's awful entertaining. And it's incredible how often you'll have a coach who'll make a training session boring. It's like, if this is a very exciting, fast-paced, physical game, how are you making it boring, you know?
Yeah. It's easy to make it boring, or, you know, a lot of trainers will do the same few bits every evening, the same rhetoric. I don't think they have a standard ingredient that they go with training, and that's it. And, you know, some clubs need that, you know, stability wise, you know, just to get a bit of structure, organization. But I think the further up you go, I think they want to be challenged mentally, or they want to be like, I'd never have the same.
They want a physical battle. They want to be pulling the heads off each other. And I never brought a whistle to training, and plenty would be given out to me for it, the players. And sometimes selectors, they wouldn't be too happy, but I would just literally just let them. And that always brought about, because you'd have a few loose tackles then and no whistle, so it always got tempers up, and it made it more fun.
It's the blood, yeah. It gets the blood pumping. I remember when I was up in Sligo, Fintan Ruddy used to play for Mayo on goalies. You know, the kick fada king. He as Mayo or back could call him. He was training with us, and I was training with him the year after I was coaching. I went back playing, and we were doing a simple 1-on-1. You know, one fellow goes out right, another fellow goes out left, runs around the corner, they meet in the middle, and it was tame out stuff. And Fintan said to me, he said, "Watch this now. Me and you will go for it now." And I said, "We'll go for it." And so we ran around the cones, and Fintan absolutely floored me as he did. He's a big fella. I'm big enough myself, but he nailed me, right? And there's a big ooh out the whole. But after that, the intensity just went up straight away. When they seen the blood was boiling, everyone else kind of went to that level. Like, I thought it was very smart from it. I always take it. I always let a little bit go early in a training game, just to get the tempers up and gets people on their toes. Like, it's something I picked up of him.
Leadership too. I remember, like, when I was coaching Gary Moore, like Miles Fallon or Kieran Cunningham, they'd level you, like, absolutely. They'd lift some young lad upside down, but then it was all well natured. It was for his own good type thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Raised the tempo of the whole game.
You got to practice that, you know.
I think those rural clubs are obviously a lot better at holding on to players over 30, you know, and I think players over 30 generally bring that to training sessions. They might not be able to move around the pitch as well, but they'll throw a belt. And if you don't have those few over 30, you're missing that, and you get the rude awakening then in championship.
You do, and you know what? Them fellas were years getting the belts off the lads that were there previously, so that's the way it goes. Like,
have a young team or no fellas over 30, you're missing that, and you're missing it in training, and your only eye opener to it is in the match then, and that's where you get caught.
Yeah, definitely.
So then, we'll move on a little bit. So with the podcast, or where it's going next, I know you mentioned you didn't really have any end game in sight or any. But what do you think RF is popular or known for right now, and what do you want to be known for or seen as?
Oh, that's a fair old lump of questions to be given a man on a Friday at 2 o'clock. Um, what do I want it to be known as? I suppose fun.
Because just to give you a little bit of context, like there's a huge amount of effort that's gone in, and like in the digital space, sometimes it's a strange thing because you have this thing that exists, but you can't hold it in your hands. It's not real, you know. So
True.
your online thing that you've created, it's across Twitter, it's across the podcast on Spotify. You can't hold it, as in it's not a physical thing, but it's very, very real, and it's got huge potential. It's got a huge following, a huge audience. What do you want that to be seen as, or what do you want to do with it?
I want it to be beneficial for people, um, as something to enjoy and make them laugh and see the positives in football. And maybe, I share a lot of stuff, especially on the social media side of things, funny things that happen in football, or it might be somehow GAA related. And like, it's awful important that I think anyway, like there's a lunatic in every club, there's a local header in every club, and I think everybody needs to see everyone else's local lunatics, and people enjoy that. Like I met Martin Corcoran, the referee. He's the umpire now. Like I met him there in the Castle Court there a week or two ago, and geez, at the crack with him. Like, and people need to meet these people or see these guys, and I like to showcase maybe what it's just more about. There's more to it than just lifting Montclair every year. There's the social aspect of football is absolutely, it's more important than football. Clubs mean an awful lot to people. It's a play, especially like even I'd say here in Tormakeady, it's the hub of the village. It's everything. If there's a game on, it could be an under 14s match on. People just pull in and meet and talk and watch the game, and that side of it, I think is absolutely. I like to showcase that and show the importance of it. And people abroad, Kev, the amount of people that live all over the world that message me, that die for the pod, that love it because they're not at home and they feel like it's an hour at home when they're in the car or they're on the train, wherever else, that they're sitting there and they're listening to people talk about, and we talk about things maybe that's going on as well. There could be bad flooding somewhere, or there'll be a problem with a road or something. There could be something going on locally that you wouldn't see on Facebook or you mightn't see on RT News, but it's a big thing to us, and it's all Mayo based. Like
Yeah,
that's, I think, the biggest achievement is the numbers. To have the numbers when we just talk about Mayo, we're not. I have no interest in talking about going nationwide and talking about the Dubs and Tyrone and Derry. And I want to talk about the intermediate relegation final, what's going on in Kilshamall, how they're down so many players, and it's a huge story in that town, and it means an awful lot to the people inside Mayo. And I want to keep the way. It's not my career, it's not my job. There's no pressure on me to produce content. I can turn off the phone and go on holiday for a month, and there's nothing's going to happen.
yeah,
It's a hobby it's a hobby for me, and it's a way of connecting with people. And I think I've met loads of people through it. And what does it mean to me? It means it's a big part of my life now. It is, but at the same time, I don't need it. Like I don't
yeah,
need. I can walk away. I can walk
yeah,
away. I think that's what makes it easier for me. That there's no pressure on me to. Oh, I've got a mortgage here now. I got to pay. I've got to make 2 pods this week, and I got to be funny. And
yeah,
there's no pressure.
yeah,
If we have a shit pod, like if there's many of the podcasts back through the year there and last year, like we've done on a Wednesday or a Tuesday night, I could be dying on the Monday. Or maybe I took the Monday off, went on the beer. And I put up a tweet before, and it was actually one of the most well received tweets I've had. No pod tonight. I'm on the beer today. And people just accepted that because they're like, he's on the beer. Sure, there's no pod now. People like that. People love that. It's that
yeah,
honest. Like, there's an honesty to it.
yeah, yeah, and it is that raw.
It's pure raw, and it's not going to change. I don't think it's going to change. Too much work.
no filter, as they say online.
There is none. Well, there is, yeah. There's as much as you can, like as much as you can for three fellas talking crap about life and about football. And we're so
Yeah,
as well, Kev, as well. We're completely different people
yeah.
from completely different walks of life. Like
Mm.
I wouldn't be the average sort of GA nut. Enda is definitely not, and John is himself. Like John is from Hollymount. He's
Yeah,
different. We're three different stages and three different lives, and then we just come together. Like we wouldn't see each other. Like people think we talk all the time, or me and Enda and John are all the time chatting about, oh, what are we going to talk about? We don't talk like. We talk on the pod. We might have the odd text over now, but we never really like
yeah.
converse that much outside of even we were at pod. We got
And that's
nominated.
the GAA does in the Mayo Club Championship. Like I absolutely loved the Mayo Club Championship. I still do. I like the preparation for games. It's just the buzz out of it is unbelievable.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's what people maybe underappreciate at times is how good it is at bringing people together. From different clubs and from different parts of Mayo, and people with absolutely zero common interest. Like literally nothing in common except football.
yeah, and it brings everyone together too. You see the crowds that come around to these games.
Unbelievable.
It is. It's very hard to turn your back to it.
Hmm.
It's very hard not when you're so engrossed in it now. Like I am. I've been involved with teams the last couple of years in championship and trying through the podcast. Like, let me tell you one thing. It's a stressful couple of weeks when
Hmm.
you're, you might have to do two pods and then have three training sessions and then you're trying to. Like last year was absolutely mental for me. I was training Hollymount. I was training Tourmakeady under 16s. I was involved in the Mayo under 19 development panel. And then I got married and had to, like there was so much on. I was gone every night. Wednesday nights, I think, was the only night of the week that I had free. Um, it was mental. I don't know how I did it, but I'm looking forward to getting back on the field now this year with just one team and the pod. And
Started all again.
yeah, it's already started. We've done a pod there. We've done a quick half an hour one. Like this will tell you, we're on about the rough nature of this podcast, okay? So I decided on the way home, I'd put it up in the WhatsApp group. We'll do a pod tonight. How about 6:30? No reply from anyone. Then John, about a half an hour later, about I'd say nearly 6 o'clock, goes, yeah, fine, okay, send on link. And Enda goes, yeah, no problem. So up anyway, John comes. I'm sitting here. Like, where's Enda? Enda comes online then, and you'd hear this noise. He's driving the van on the way to Dangan to watch a Sigerson Cup game. And it's like, do you want to go on the pod? He's like, yeah, belt away. So I'm literally doing the pod. He's in the van, or looking at the phone, doing the pod. Pays in, literally talking about something. Pays into the game. You can see him on the screen, like holding up to his ear, walking down to Dangan. Then you can hear the match in the background, and we're doing a podcast.
Yeah,
It's pure ad hoc. That's I think that's people appreciate we're not trying to be anyone else.
yeah, yeah. Well done with it. It's I've really enjoyed from just the scores in the early days. They were very helpful to all the information on the podcast. So and what you've built in terms of how much your audience listens to you and how much they trust you is. It might seem simple and might seem ad hoc or whatever, but that's a very difficult thing to do. I think there's a lot
Thanks.
of other journalists who might see themselves as a lot more professional in all sports in Ireland who'd kill to have an audience or to be trusted the way you are. So
Yeah, I don't think there's too many archaeologists. Too many archaeologists that are doing sports podcasting. So I'm not a
no,
journalist. You said it already. I'm not in that. That's why it probably takes so long to probably maybe get it going properly to be recognized. But we're involved now. We're looking to push on.
yeah, okay. Well, that's a good place to finish. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been fascinating. I've really enjoyed the conversation. A lot of
Good.
funny stuff. So we'll leave it there, and that's our ref. Thanks to everyone for listening.
Cheers, Kev.